The massive screens in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council showed a dazzling display of starships. Vessels made of pure energy danced alongside crystalline ships that sparkled like diamonds in space. At the very end of the display, looking out of place, and almost embarrassingly simple, was a metal ship with conventional engines, the human vessel Swift Dream. "And now," announced High Council Member Davis in his booming voice, "we come to the most anticipated sporting event of the millennium, the first Intergalactic Racing Championship." His words echoed through the hall, met with excited chirps, hums, and applause from the hundreds of alien representatives. Captain Tom Reed stood at the back of the hall, his weathered face showing no emotion as the alien diplomats discussed the upcoming race. At 50 Earth years old, he was considered young by the standards of most species present, some of whom lived for centuries. His simple blue uniform, bearing Earth's flag, looked plain next to the shimmering robes and bioluminescent suits of the other participants. "The race," continued Davis, "will test the very limits of our ships and crews. The course spans through 3 galaxies, crossing asteroid fields, radiation zones, and the infamous Maelstrom Nebula." A tall, silver-skinned alien raised what appeared to be a hand. "Honorable Council, I must question the wisdom of allowing lesser species to participate." His glowing eyes fixed directly on Tom, particularly those who still rely on chemical propulsion and metal hulls. Laughter rippled through the hall. Tom's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "The Council believes in inclusivity," Davis replied, though his smile suggested he shared the sentiment, "even if some participants might not complete the first leg." More laughter. Tom felt his hands curl into fists inside his pockets but maintained his diplomatic composure. Earth had only joined the galactic community 3 years ago, and humanity was still proving itself worthy of membership. The meeting continued with technical briefings. Each race proudly presented their ships. The luminaries showed off their pure energy vessel, which could transform into any shape. The Crystalline Confederation displayed their ship grown from living crystals, capable of healing itself. Each presentation was met with appreciative murmurs and respectful nods. Then came Earth's turn. Tom walked to the center of the hall, activated his simple holographic projector, and displayed the Swift Dream. The ship looked like something from old Earth sci-fi movies, a long, sleek vessel made of advanced metals, with visible engines and a bridge section. "The Swift Dream," Tom began, "represents the best of human engineering." "Is that rust protection I see?" called out someone from the crowd, triggering another wave of laughter. Tom continued steadily, "Our ship combines traditional engineering with modern innovations." "Traditional?" interrupted another voice. "You mean obsolete?" "Please," the silver-skinned alien from before stood up again. "My ship's waste energy system is more advanced than your main propulsion. This is not a museum exhibition. This is a race that will push the boundaries of space travel." Tom felt his face grow hot, but years of pilot training helped him keep his cool. "We understand the challenges ahead. Earth is ready to compete." "Compete?" The silver alien's laugh was like grinding metal. "You'll be lucky if that metal box doesn't fall apart at the starting line. Go home, human. Save yourselves the embarrassment." Davis cleared his throat. "Thank you, Captain Reed." Moving on to the race regulations. Tom returned to his place, his steps measured and calm despite the continuing snickers. He thought about his crew back on the Swift Dream. Engineer Jack working on their secret modifications, Navigator Mary running yet another simulation. They had anticipated this reaction, had planned for it. Let them laugh, Tom thought. They didn't know about the hybrid quantum drive hidden beneath the primitive exterior, didn't understand how Earth's centuries of working with metal and chemicals had led to innovations they couldn't imagine, didn't realize that sometimes the old ways, combined with the new, could produce something revolutionary. The aliens saw a primitive metal ship with chemical engines. They didn't see what the Swift Dream really was. Humanity's perfect blend of past and future, tradition and innovation, brute force and elegant design. Tom smiled slightly as Davis concluded the meeting. In 3 days, the race would begin. In 3 days, they would show the galaxy what primitive humans could do. The inside of the Swift Dream looked nothing like its plain exterior. Captain Tom Reed walked through the brightly lit corridors, heading to the engine room where strange humming sounds echoed through the walls. He found engineer Jack Miller half buried inside an open panel, muttering to himself as he worked. "Jack, how are the modifications coming along?" Tom asked, ducking under a hanging bundle of cables. Jack pulled himself out, his gray hair messy, and his face streaked with grease. Despite being the oldest crew member at 60, he moved with the energy of someone half his age. "Those aliens think we're using simple chemical engines," he grinned. "Wait until they see what these babies can really do." The engineer pointed to what appeared to be a normal engine core, but hidden behind the traditional design was their secret weapon, a revolutionary quantum drive system that combined old-school thrust with new physics that even most humans didn't fully understand yet. "Captain." Navigator Mary Cooper's voice came through the ship's comm system. "You need to see this in the bridge." Tom and Jack made their way to the bridge, where Mary sat surrounded by holographic displays. At 35, she was the youngest of the three, but her mind for mathematics had helped design half the systems on the ship. "Look at these readings from the other ships," she said, pointing to the data streaming across her screens. "They're all focused on pure energy or exotic materials. None of them are using hybrid systems like ours." Tom studied the numbers. "Because they think combining old and new technology is primitive." "Exactly." Mary smiled. "They've forgotten something important. Sometimes the old ways work better." The bridge fell quiet as they remembered how Earth had earned its place in this race. 6 months ago, when the Galactic Council announced the competition, thousands of Earth pilots had competed for this chance. Tom's experience with both spaceflight and old-style aircraft racing had won him the captain's seat. Jack's crazy ideas about combining technologies had gotten him the engineer's post, and Mary's unique approach to space mathematics had made her the perfect navigator. "Remember the final selection test?" Jack asked, chuckling. Tom nodded. That day, Earth's best pilots had faced a simulation of the dangerous Maelstrom Nebula. Most modern ships had failed, their advanced systems overwhelmed by the radiation. But Tom, using Mary's calculations and Jack's hybrid engines, had completed the course by flying like an old Earth airplane pilot through a storm. The memory was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed across the bridge. "What's wrong?" Tom asked, jumping into his captain's chair. Mary's fingers flew across her controls. "2 alien ships just tried to scan our engine room. Their energy beams almost interfered with our systems. They're testing us," Jack growled, "trying to prove we're too primitive to have proper security." Tom pressed a button on his chair. The Swift Dream's special shielding activated. Another hybrid creation that combines simple metal barriers with quantum field technology. The alien scans bounced off harmlessly. Through the bridge window, they could see the 2 alien ships hovering nearby. One was made of pure energy, glowing like a small sun. The other looked like a giant diamond, its crystal surface reflecting the stars. "They're probably laughing at our metal hull right now," Mary said. "Let them laugh." Tom stood up, watching the alien vessels drift away. Everyone forgets that humans reached the stars using metal ships and chemical rockets. We learned things along the way that these advanced races never had to figure out. Jack patted the nearest wall proudly. "And now we've taken everything we learned and mixed it with their fancy new science. Best of both worlds." "Speaking of both worlds," Mary interrupted, "final race preparations start in 6 hours. We should run one last systems check." Tom nodded. "Jack, make sure our primitive engines are ready to surprise some people. Mary, double-check those course calculations. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're going to show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways mixed with the new create something special." As his crew went to work, Tom stayed on the bridge, watching the alien ships in the distance. Tomorrow, they would all learn an important lesson. Never judge a ship by its hull. The space around Alpha Centauri sparkled with 20 ships of different shapes and sizes. Energy vessels glowed like floating stars. Crystal ships reflected light in rainbow patterns. And among them, looking plain but proud, waited the Swift Dream. Final systems check. Captain Tom announced from his command chair. Engineering. All engines running perfectly, Jack replied from the engine room. Our primitive systems are ready to show them what Earth technology can do. Navigation. Mary's fingers danced across her controls. Course plotted through the first leg. Weather warning shows a solar storm forming, but we can handle it. Through the main window, they watched as a massive holographic countdown appeared in space. The numbers glowed in bright blue, visible to all ships. 10 o'clock minutes until race start. Attention all racers, the race controller's voice boomed through their communications. The first leg will take you through the Star Scatter asteroid field. From there, you'll navigate the edges of a solar storm before reaching the checkpoint at Beta Station. Good luck to all participants. Tom heard laughter over the open channel as alien racers made final jokes about the metal box with engines. He switched off the channel and focused on his crew. Remember, he said quietly, we trained for this. No matter what they think of us, we know what this ship can do. The countdown reached 5 o'clock minutes. Suddenly, their sensors beeped. 3 alien ships had moved closer, their scanners trying one last time to peek inside the Swift Dream. They're still trying to figure out how we qualified, Mary said, shaking her head. Let them wonder, Jack replied through the comm. His voice carried the excitement of someone about to reveal a great surprise. 2 o'clock minutes. Tom's hands gripped his controls. The ship hummed beneath him, but not with the usual sound of chemical engines. Their hybrid system made a unique tone. Part old rocket power, part quantum drive. 1 o'clock minute. All ships engage startup sequence, the controller announced. The space around them lit up as 20 different propulsion systems came to life. Energy ships glowed brighter. Crystal ships hummed with power. The Swift Dream's engines roared quietly, hiding their true nature behind the sound of traditional rockets. 30 seconds. Ready on navigation, Mary reported. Engineering standing by, Jack added. 15 seconds. Tom felt his heart beating faster. This was what they had trained for. This was humanity's chance to prove itself. 10 seconds. The alien ships ahead of them started to pulse with power. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Race Isterit. Space exploded with light as 20 ships launched forward at once. Energy vessels streaked ahead like shooting stars. Crystal ships blazed forward in rainbow trails. Tom pushed the Swift Dream's controls forward. The hybrid engines roared to full power. What looked like simple chemical thrust on the outside was actually their secret weapon engaging, the perfect mix of old and new technology. To everyone's shock, the Swift Dream kept pace with the leaders. Impossible, someone shouted over the open channel. The human ship. Full power to forward engines, Tom commanded, cutting off the alien chatter. Mary, plot us the most efficient course through this pack. Already done, she replied with a grin. Sending course to your display now. The Swift Dream moved with grace through the pack of racing ships. While others pushed straight ahead with raw power, Tom used old pilot skills to weave between competitors, saving energy and finding the best path forward. We're catching up to the lead group, Mary reported excitedly. Jack's laugh came through the comm. You should see their energy readings. They're burning so much power trying to figure out how we're keeping up. As they approached the first challenge, the Star Scatter asteroid field, Tom allowed himself a small smile. They had surprised the aliens by keeping up, but that was just the beginning. The real test was about to start, and the Swift Dream had more surprises in store. Ahead, the asteroid field waited like a maze of floating rocks. The real race was about to begin. The star-scatter asteroid field stretched before them like an endless sea of rocks. Some asteroids were as small as basketballs, others as large as mountains. Through this dangerous maze, 20 racing ships now threaded their way forward. First casualty. Mary announced from her navigation station. One of the crystal ships just took heavy damage from asteroid impacts. Tom watched as the beautiful crystalline vessel pulled away from the race. Its shimmering hull cracked in several places. The advanced crystal technology, while powerful, proved too delicate for the constant impacts of space debris. 3 energy ships are also having troubles, Jack reported from engineering. Their fancy force fields are getting overloaded trying to push away all the small rocks. The Swift Dream's primitive metal hull, meanwhile, shrugged off the smaller impacts like rain on a roof. The larger asteroids were another matter. They required all of Tom's piloting skills to avoid. Hard left, Mary called out. Tom yanked the controls, and their ship sliced between 2 massive rocks with barely a meter to spare. Show off, Jack chuckled through the comm. More alerts flashed across their screens as other ships faced difficulties. The energy vessel's shields were failing under the constant bombardment. The crystal ships were forced to move slowly, trying to protect their fragile structures. But the Swift Dream moved faster and faster. You know what those advanced races forgot, Jack said, as he monitored their engines. Sometimes simple is better. Our hull isn't pretty, but it's tough. And it's light. We're using way less power than they are. Tom nodded as he guided them through another tight gap. They forgot that Earth ships had to be tough. We didn't have fancy force fields when we first went to space. We had to build ships that could take a beating. A massive asteroid appeared directly ahead. 3 alien ships were already trapped there, trying to calculate the perfect path around it. Their advanced computers processed countless variables, looking for the mathematically perfect solution. Tom didn't wait for calculations. He pulled from decades of flight experience, feeling the ship's movement like it was part of his own body. The Swift Dream rolled sideways and shot through a narrow gap that the alien ship's computers had marked as too risky. That's impossible. An alien voice crackled over their comm. No computational system could plot that course. They don't understand, Mary said with pride. Captain Tom didn't use a computer. He used instinct, something their machines can't copy. As they emerged from the dense part of the field, their sensors showed something amazing. The Swift Dream had taken the lead. First place, Jack shouted. Those stuck-up aliens are eating our space dust. But Tom wasn't celebrating yet. Status report. Hull integrity at 97%, Jack replied. Those small impacts just scratched the paint. Main engines running perfectly, and our hybrid drive is barely warming up. 7 ships have withdrawn from the race, Mary added. 5 more are falling behind. That leaves 8 still in real competition, and we're leading the pack. Through their rear viewers, they could see the remaining alien ships struggling to catch up. The energy vessels glowed dimmer now, their power depleted from constant shield use. The surviving crystal ships moved cautiously, their crews now more concerned with survival than speed. Incoming transmission, Mary announced. It's the race controller. Tom switched on the comm. The controller's voice sounded surprised. Swift Dream, your navigation through the asteroid field was unprecedented. Some competitors are suggesting you must have used illegal technology. We used the same technology that took humans to the moon 100 years ago, Tom replied calmly, just with some modern improvements. But your flight pattern, our computers can't even analyze how. That's because we didn't just use computers, Tom said. We used human skill. If anyone wants to inspect our ship after the race, they're welcome to it. He switched off the comm and focused on the course ahead. The solar storm they detected earlier was growing stronger. Soon, they would face an even greater challenge. But for now, the Swift Dream had shown the galaxy something important. Sometimes, the old ways were the best ways. and they were just getting started. The Maelstrom Nebula loomed ahead of the Swift Dream like a wall of angry purple clouds. Bolts of energy crackled through the gas, and radiation readings were off the charts. This was the challenge that had destroyed ships for centuries. "Status of the remaining ships?" Tom asked, his eyes fixed on the approaching storm. 8 ships still in the race, Mary reported from her navigation station. 3 energy vessels, 2 crystal ships, 2 ships made of living metal, and us. We're still in the lead, but they're catching up. Jack's voice crackled through the comm system. "Captain, you need to see these radiation readings. They're twice what we expected." The first energy ship behind them tried to enter the nebula. Its bright glow flickered like a dying light bulb as the radiation interfered with its systems. Within seconds, it was forced to retreat. "Their energy fields can't handle the interference," Mary observed. "The nebula is disrupting their advanced systems." They watched as a crystal ship attempted to pass through next. The radiation turned its beautiful transparent hull cloudy, and warning signals echoed across all channels as the ship struggled to maintain its structure. "Swift Dream," the race controller's voice came through. "We recommend you withdraw. No traditional hull has ever survived these radiation levels." Tom smiled. "They still think we're flying with outdated technology." He switched channels to engineering. "Jack, time to show them our secret weapon." "With pleasure." Jack's excitement was clear in his voice. "Activating hybrid shielding now." The Swift Dream's hull began to change. What looked like simple metal plates shifted slightly, revealing a network of quantum field generators hidden beneath. But unlike the alien ships that relied purely on energy shields, the Swift Dream used both physical and quantum protection. "Entering the nebula now," Tom announced. "Mary, keep us on the shortest safe path. Jack, monitor those shield levels." The ship plunged into the purple chaos. Radiation alarms blared throughout the vessel, but their hybrid shields held strong. While other ships' advanced systems were overwhelmed by the radiation, the Swift Dream's combination of old and new technology worked perfectly. "It's like I always said," Jack commented as he adjusted their shield frequencies. "Sometimes you need a good old-fashioned lead wall and a quantum field, belt, and suspenders." Through their rear viewers, they could see the remaining ships struggling to follow their path. One by one, they were forced to turn back or take longer routes around the nebula. "How are our engines holding up?" Tom asked. "That's the beauty of our design," Jack replied proudly. "When the quantum drive gets disrupted by radiation, the chemical rockets take over. When the chemicals get too hot, the quantum system cools them down. They're working together." Mary suddenly leaned forward at her station. "Captain, there's a massive radiation wave heading straight for us." Tom's hands tightened on the controls. This was what they had trained for. "Jack, divert all spare power to forward shields. Mary, find us a path through it." The radiation wave approached like a purple tsunami in space. The remaining alien ships scattered, their advanced systems unable to cope with such intense energy. But the Swift Dream turned directly into the wave. "Are you crazy?" An alien voice shouted over the comm. "Your primitive ship will be torn apart." The wave hit them with tremendous force. Warning lights flashed across every console. The ship groaned under the strain. "Hull integrity holding at 60%, Jack reported. "Hybrid shields are doing their job." "Quantum drive is stabilizing," Mary added. "We're pushing through." The Swift Dream burst through the other side of the wave, its hybrid systems trained but functioning. Behind them, the radiation wave had scattered the remaining competitors across space. "Damage report?" Tom asked. "Nothing we can't handle," Jack replied. "Those aliens don't understand. Sometimes you need to be strong, not just sophisticated." Race control calling all ships. The controller's voice sounded stunned. "The Swift Dream has cleared the Maelstrom Nebula. They are now 3 hours ahead of all remaining vessels." Tom allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. "Mary, plot our course to the finish line." Jack, let's show them what our primitive ship can really do. The swift Dream sailed on through clear space, leaving the nebula and the doubts of the alien races far behind. The final stretch of the race laid out before the swift Dream like a starlit highway. But the peaceful scene was interrupted by a warning blast from their sensors. 3 ships approaching fast from behind. Mary called out, "It's the defending champion's energy vessel and 2 living metal ships. They must have found a shortcut through the nebula's edge." Tom checked his displays. The alien ships were closing the gap quickly, their engines pushing to maximum power now that they were free from the nebula's interference. They looked different, Jack reported from engineering. They changed their configurations, combining their systems somehow. He was right. The energy ship now had a metallic core, while the metal ships glowed with energy fields. The aliens had finally learned to copy the humans' hybrid approach. Well, a smooth voice came through their comm system. "The defending champion, Bright Star here. Impressive show back there, humans. But we've figured out your little trick. Not so special now, are you?" Tom didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, he asked, "Jack, how much power do we have left?" 70% in main engines, 65% in the quantum drive. "But Captain, there's something else. The solar storm we detected earlier, it's growing. Fast." As if on cue, their sensors lit up with new warnings. A massive solar flare was building up ahead of them, right in their path to the finish line. "All ships, this is race control," the controller's voice crackled through. "A Class X solar flare is emerging. Standard protocol is to wait it out. Please hold positions." The 3 alien ships behind them slowed immediately. Solar flares were deadly. Even their advanced shields couldn't handle that kind of power. But Tom didn't reach for the brake controls. "Captain," Mary asked nervously, "shouldn't we stop?" "Jack," Tom called instead, "remember that trick we used in the simulator? The one that failed 9 times out of 10. A moment of silence. Then Jack laughed. "The solar surfer maneuver. You're crazy. But it might just work. Our hybrid shields are still stronger than their copied versions." "Mary," Tom turned to his navigator, "plot us a course that uses the flare's electromagnetic field, like surfing a wave." Mary's fingers flew over her controls, calculations streaming across her screen. "Got it. But Captain, one wrong move and we'll be fried." "Trust your calculations," Tom said calmly. "Trust our ship." The alien ships watched in disbelief as the swift Dream accelerated toward the growing solar flare. "Humans," the champion's voice shouted over the comm, "this is suicide. Your primitive ship can't possibly survive." "Primitive," Jack scoffed. "They still don't get it. Activating full hybrid shields now." The solar flare erupted ahead of them, a wall of plasma and energy that could melt a planet. But instead of running from it, the swift Dream angled itself just right, using its hybrid shields to ride the edge of the flare's electromagnetic field. Warning alarms screamed through the ship. The hull temperature rose rapidly. Their shields flickered under the strain. "Hull integrity at 40%, Jack shouted. "Shield failure imminent," Mary added. But Tom held their course. The swift Dream shot forward, riding the solar flare like a surfer on a wave. Their speed increased dramatically as the flare's energy pushed them forward. "They're actually doing it," they heard the champion whisper over the comm. The swift Dream rocketed ahead, leaving the alien ships far behind. When they finally cleared the flare's range, their sensors showed they had gained a massive lead. "Damage report?" Tom asked, finally loosening his grip on the controls. "Hull needs some patching, shields are recovering, but everything critical is intact," Jack reported proudly. "This old girl is tougher than she looks." "Distance to finish line?" Tom asked Mary. "Just 1 light hour," she replied with a grin. "And no ships within 3 hours of catching us." Tom allowed himself to relax slightly in his chair. They had done it. Their primitive ship, with its hybrid of old and new technology, had outperformed the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. "You know what the aliens still don't understand," Jack said thoughtfully. "It's not about having the newest technology. It's about knowing when to use the old, when to use the new, and how to make them work together." The finish line beckoned ahead, and the swift Dream sailed on, carrying the pride of humanity with it. The finish line station floated in space like a giant silver ring, its lights pulsing with anticipation. Thousands of spectators from across the galaxy had gathered to witness the end of the greatest race ever held. None of them had expected to see a human ship finish first. The swift Dream approached the finish line at a steady pace, its hull bearing the scars of its incredible journey. Scorch marks from the solar flare painted its sides, and small dents from asteroid impacts dotted its surface. But it flew straight and true. 20 seconds to finish," Mary announced, her voice tight with excitement. Jack's voice came through the calm, thick with emotion. "She did it. Our beautiful primitive ship did it." The swift Dream crossed the finish line. For a moment, complete silence filled all communication channels. Then the station erupted with cheers, gasps, and exclamations in 100 alien languages. "Swift Dream has finished the race." The announcer's voice boomed. "First place goes to Earth." As they docked with the station, Tom finally allowed himself to smile. "Good work, everyone. Jack, Mary, we showed them what humans can do." But their celebration was interrupted by an urgent message from race control. "Captain Reed, your presence is requested in the main hall. There have been accusations." 10 minutes later, Tom stood in the great hall of the station, facing the race officials and representatives from other ships. The defending champion, captain of the Bright Star, stood pointing at him angrily. "It's impossible," the champion insisted. "No simple metal ship could have survived that course. They must have used illegal technology." The head official, a tall being made of pure light, raised a hand for silence. "Captain Reed, we must inspect your vessel. If there are any illegal modifications, inspect all you want," Tom replied calmly. "Every part of our ship follows race regulations. We just use them differently." A team of alien engineers swarmed over the swift Dream. They scanned every inch, analyzed every system. Jack stood proudly in the engine room, explaining their hybrid technology to increasingly amazed alien engineers. After an hour, the chief engineer returned to the hall. "The human ship is legal. They simply combined allowed technologies in ways we never considered. Their hull uses approved metals, but layered in a new pattern. Their engines merge permitted propulsion types. Everything they did was within rules. We just didn't think anyone would do it this way." The defending champion sank into his chair, stunned. But it's so primitive." "No," Tom spoke up, his voice carrying across the hall. "It's not primitive. It's progressive. We humans didn't abandon our past when we found new technology. We built on it. Every dent in our hulls taught us something. Every engine failure showed us a better way. When we reached the stars and found your advanced technology, we didn't throw away our experience. We added to it." He walked to the center of the hall, where his battered but triumphant ship could be seen through the window. The Swift Dream isn't just a metal ship with fancy additions. It's a bridge between past and future, between tradition and innovation. That's humanity's real strength. The hall fell silent. Then, slowly, the head official stood. "The victory stands. Earth has won the first intergalactic racing championship." Cheers erupted again, but this time different from before. There was respect in the alien voices now. Understanding. Several alien engineers were already discussing how to better integrate old and new technologies in their ships. Later, as the crew of the Swift Dream celebrated in their ship, Mary looked out at the gathered alien vessels. "They're already starting to modify their ships," she noted, "combining materials, adapting their systems." "Good," Tom replied. "That's how progress really works. Not by throwing away the past, but by building on it. Jack raised a cup of coffee, his ancient, primitive drink of choice. "To the swift dream," he said proudly, "the ship that taught the galaxy that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways." "And to humanity," Tom added, "may we always remember that our greatest strength isn't in abandoning our past, but in using it to build our future." Outside, the Swift Dream's scarred hull gleamed under the starlight, no longer a mark of shame, but a badge of honor, a symbol of humanity's unique place in the galaxy, where the past and future work together in perfect harmony.